Hi, this is John from the Miracosta College Writing Center. Welcome to our video on revising, editing, and proofreading. This video will explain a few key differences between these terms and offer some ideas for how and when you can effectively implement them during your own writing process. Let's get started. Revising usually happens before editing and proofreading, so let's start there. Whether you're looking at a section, a paragraph, or the entire paper, revising considers a global or big picture view of your work. Here we place a priority on what we call higher order concerns. Staying focused and on topic is a good goal to keep in mind during the revision process. And this might mean adding new information you decided is important. Perhaps you've found a piece of research you can use to fill a gap. You might even eliminate some of what was included because you decide it no longer applies. If this is a thesis-driven paper, this is the time to make sure your arguments support the thesis. You might ask yourself, does the thesis match my arguments? If not, should I revise my thesis or should I revise my arguments? Finally, this is also an opportunity to organize your paper. You might move entire paragraphs around during this stage to make a more logical flow of ideas. Although not necessarily a complete list, these are a few of the most common areas to address while revising. Notice that they are all independent of proofreading and editing because they relate more to what is being said than how it is being said. Let's move on to editing. That's a good next step once you've revised. While revision happens on a global level, editing is a regional activity. You might edit your entire paper, but the actual edits will happen within sentences or paragraphs. Also important to keep in mind, editing is not necessarily about making corrections. Clearly expressing your ideas is one primary goal at this stage. And it might begin with editing for repetition and wordiness. Repetition can literally be using the same word too often, or you have repeated the same idea but rephrased it when once was enough. Wordiness simply means you are using too many words to express something that can be said more concisely. Sentence level issues is another area to address at this stage. This includes having variety in your sentence structure as well as watching for run-ons and fragments. Many papers can benefit from editing for the use of jargon and cliches. Jargon includes specialized language that only a specific audience will understand. Cliches are expressions or phrases that have been overused. Although a reader might understand the cliche, it probably doesn't reflect the writer's original thinking. Finally, checking for the use of language and style can be addressed while editing. This is an opportunity to make sure the language used is appropriate for your audience and purpose. Although not all-inclusive, these are some of the topics that can be addressed before you move on to proofreading. Let's do that now. Although not necessarily the easiest part of the writing process, proofreading is perhaps the most straightforward of our three terms to define. Here we are literally looking for mistakes and correcting them. These are lower order concerns. Polishing the final draft before submitting it to a professor is the primary goal. While proofreading, you'll be looking for grammar errors such as verb tense consistency and subject-verb agreement, punctuation errors, and spelling errors. Be sure to watch for homonyms, words that sound the same but are spelled differently, and homographs, words that are spelled the same but have different meanings. This video has explored some examples of what it means to revise, edit, and proofread your papers. We've looked at how we typically begin with revising by adding and/or eliminating information, matching our thesis with the support, and organizing our paragraphs. With editing, we considered repetition and wordiness, sentence level issues, jargon and cliches, as well as language and style. Finally, while proofreading, we mentioned correcting errors in grammar, punctuation, and spelling. Although not all-inclusive, these represent a good place to start while you're working through your own writing process. How about some tips for success? First, be mindful of your goal. Although most writers go back and forth between editing and revising during the drafting process, it helps to be aware of your specific goal. Being deliberate will help make your time more productive. Second, define your needs when asking for feedback. If you ask for feedback from someone, remember they might have a different idea of what it means to proofread, edit, and/or revise. So be ready to explain and define your needs so your reader can better focus on your priorities. And finally, take the opportunity to see your work through fresh and objective eyes by taking breaks. It helps to come back, whether that's a few hours or even a couple days after you've done some of your work. Thank you for watching our video on revising, editing, and proofreading. If you'd like to see some specific examples of how you can put some of these strategies discussed to use, drop in at the Writing Center. Any of our coaches and consultants will be happy to work with you, and we look forward to seeing you soon.